Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today's video is part one of this little series talking all things home and interiors, in particular storage solutions, furnishing tips, and all my kind of tips and tricks that I've picked up over the last year or so living in a rented apartment. These kind of tips apply to pretty much anyone. If you're looking to update your space and you want some tips, whether you need more storage solutions, whether you're moving into a rented apartment and you don't really know how to style it, or even if you live in a rented home and you just want to update it for spring summer. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not already. There will be a lot of home content coming up and I cannot wait. So before we leave our apartment, I thought it would be a good idea for me to just put all of my tips and everything I've picked up in one place so you can go back to it and refer to it if you ever need to. I asked on Instagram for a couple of questions to see what kind of thing you wanted me to chat about and what things you needed help with. So I'm gonna kind of work my way through these questions and show you bits and talk about it along the way. So the first topic I am going to be discussing is how to furnish an apartment that you're renting but is already furnished. So you're moving into a rented apartment or home and it's coming fully furnished. How can you update that? How can you make that feel like your own if you can't get rid of any of the furniture? We rented our apartment completely empty. It was brand new, just been built, and had nothing in it. So although I can't relate, I do have quite a lot of tips that I think would be very useful. First things first, I would say, is curtains. Curtains make such a huge difference to your home. Whether you have big windows, small windows, whatever it is, dressing that area can really elongate the ceilings and finish off a space. And it's also a way that you can actually inject your own kind of feel, and you can actually change the upholstery. So when we moved into our apartment, you'll see I've got the curtains behind me. We actually had a really dark grey curtain and I didn't like it. It wasn't my vibe. It wasn't what I wanted to go for, but the curtain rails were already put up and I knew that they were from IKEA. I knew the curtains were from IKEA because they had the little label on. And we have very high ceilings, so finding the right length for the curtains was a little bit tricky. But luckily, the same brand of curtain had a different colour, and that is the colour that I chose. It was exactly what I wanted. It's literally worked so perfectly in our space. And it just so happened that that was readily available and was super easy. But if you do have curtains already in your apartment when you move in, take them down, store them away. I have taken the curtains down and stored them in a linen zip bag. And it's just the best way to, obviously I'm not gonna get rid of them. I need to put them back up when we leave, but it's enabled me to actually make this place feel like my own by just choosing small things like that. My next tip would be for furniture. So obviously you can't change your furniture. If you are lucky enough to have somewhere to store the furniture, then I definitely would recommend doing that. It's not for everyone, and I mean, it's such a huge cost to have a storage unit, or I don't know, if your parents have a garage and they don't mind you using it or something like that, then definitely utilize that and put the furniture elsewhere until you leave. But if you don't have that option, I would definitely recommend looking into updating your sofa or any chairs with really gorgeous linen throws. You can so easily transform a sofa, especially if you hate the colour. Just by getting a really gorgeous linen thin throw, you can just throw it over, tuck it into all the seams, and it would just instantly revive the colour. Dress it with some cushions and it literally looks brand new. One thing I think makes such a difference when you have moved into a rented home that's been previously lived in or is already furnished is your own little details. So this leads me nicely to my next question, which is tips for styling a rented apartment. Obviously, as I've just been saying, there are so many different ways to rent an apartment. It can be furnished, it could have been lived in and a little bit dated, it could be brand new. There's so many different styles of rented home that you may live in. But my tips generally for furnishing would always be to add those little touches that will make it feel like your personality is really injected. So whether that's artwork on the walls, mirrors, plants and flowers, textiles like cushions, rugs and throws, they just really inject a lot of life into the space. And if you're somebody that loves colour, this is a really nice way to freshen up and brighten a new build space or a much more dated home. I also always think it's really nice to create mini vignettes on different surfaces. So whether that's on a sideboard, a windowsill, a coffee table, creating those little vignettes of knickknacks and trinkets, whether it's books, candles, vases, photo frames, things that really add your own personality. And you can choose books that really mean something to you, whether you love traveling or you love fashion or interiors or art. Those are the ways that you can really add your own personality into a rented home. I also do think it's the little things that really go a long way. So when you're renting, it can often sometimes feel like it's not your home. You may feel reluctant to spend money and time on furnishing that space, but I'm guessing if you're watching this video, you are interested in it and you do enjoy it, and your home is kind of like your sanctuary, which is very similar to me. So it's the little details that really make a difference. Whether that's the way that you style your cushions, doing the karate chop technique to just make everything look really styled and really gorgeous, steaming your curtains so there's no creases and everything just looks really gorgeous and styled. I also have a huge thing about our bed and our bedding. If you follow me on Instagram, you probably know this already, but I love changing the bed sheets every Friday. I steam them all, I iron them all, and I take such pride in how I style our bed. And I kind of have that hotel style, so it feels really comfortable, it feels really luxurious, but it also looks great. So if someone comes over, being in an apartment, our bedroom is right next to the door, so if someone's coming over, they're definitely going to look in and see our bed. So to have it just completely styled like a hotel really gives me so much joy. Okay, moving on to storage solutions. This is something that was very highly requested, and I think it's something that we all struggle in, no matter what size of your home. Storage is a huge thing, and it's definitely something that people overlook. I think when you're designing a kitchen or you move into a rented apartment, you're not really thinking about having loads of storage space, and it's not till you really live in the space and you have nowhere to put stuff that you realize you need more storage. So in our apartment, I knew that I had a lot of stuff, and I had a lot of stuff that I didn't want to have out. I hate having things out, it's my worst nightmare. I love to have everything in a cupboard and everything just nice and neat. So having lots of space was very key for me. Some of my favorite storage solutions that I've discovered since living here are always the ones that utilize that dead space. So whether that's utilizing the back of a cupboard door to hang your shoes on, or for example, in our utility cupboard, we have a rail, which it could have been a wardrobe, but the washing machine is in there. So I've utilized that rail by hanging a fabric shelf divider, super easy, literally from Amazon. I think it cost maybe 10 to 15 pounds. And I use that to store all of our linens. So everything's really neat. You could also use that to store anything. And it's just a really good way to actually utilize that space that's hanging that I actually wouldn't use otherwise. Another tip that is probably quite simple and quite self-explanatory, but something that I think is often overlooked, especially when you have a minimalist style, is actually buying furniture with cupboards and drawers inside. So I think often you might reach for a bedside table that's actually just an open side table because it looks beautiful and it's so much more minimal and it makes the room feel bigger. Actually, you're limiting yourself with your storage. So I opted for bedside tables with 2 drawers that are really big, and I still love the design of the bedside tables, but the fact that we've got the drawers just makes it so much easier. And even if you don't fill that drawer to within an inch of its life, you've still got more space. The same with our sideboard in the living room. I originally wanted to go for just a really simple open bench with a couple of stools underneath, just very minimal, really beautiful, and actually more of a decorative purpose rather than functional. And I changed my mind and went for a cabinet so that we've got cupboards and shelving so I can actually store things away. And let me tell you, that side unit is absolutely packed full. There is no room in those cupboards for anything else. So if I didn't go for that, I don't know where I would have put all of those things. Another thing that can be really useful is if you are purchasing a stool or an ottoman, always opt for one that you can lift the lid off and you've got that extra space of storage. This works really well in a bedroom to hide all of your hair tools and all your hair bits and bobs if you don't want them out all the time. But also in the living room, if you want to put little blankets in there, remote controls or games, anything that you maybe don't have space for on your sides or you just don't want out all the time, hidden storage is a game changer. Speaking of storage in furniture, I'm such an advocate for having storage in your bed, and there's obviously two options you can go for, whether you get an ottoman so you can literally pull up the whole bed, or just drawers. We were kind of umming and ahhing which one would be better, and actually we decided to go for drawers just because I knew that I didn't have a lot of space for clothing, and those drawers were going to be life-changing for me to display all of my clothes and actually see them, but they are huge, so I can fit so much in the drawers. And obviously when we move and we don't need the storage for clothes anymore, I can still use those drawers for anything else miscellaneous, whether that's extra towels or linens or anything. That storage is always going to be handy. However, if you are living in a rented apartment and obviously you don't have a loft, you don't have storage for things like suitcases or your Christmas decorations, an ottoman bed is really handy because you're not going to be lifting that up all the time, and it's such a flat, big surface area, so you can very easily fit suitcases laying flat. You can utilize the space within the suitcase and put things in there, boxes of Christmas decorations, just all things that you're not necessarily going to need out or accessible. I think that's a really good way to utilize the space. And finally, one of my other little tips, it's not necessarily storage, but more about concealing household items that are a little bit ugly. I love hiding things. It's actually one of my favorite things, and I am really good at it. You probably wouldn't notice that we had certain things hidden around this room because it looks so minimal and everything's got a place, but I'm very clever with it. So for example, our TV unit is a freestanding tripod stand. I knew I wanted this because I didn't really want to have a TV cabinet in the corner. Although it would have looked lovely, I just wanted something really simple, and I knew that we could reuse these TV stands when we move, or I could sell them, and it's just nice and easy. And don't get me wrong, they're not the neatest. If we were in our home, I would have the TV on the wall and all the wires would be channeled through the wall, but I don't have that option. So I've opted for the TV stand, and I've actually sellotaped with a Gorilla Glue tape. The wires go all the way down the back of the leg of the TV stand, and it makes them nice and neat. Although it still doesn't look super neat, it definitely tidies it up. And often when people come around, they say, where's all your stuff? Like, you don't have your Skybox or your Wi-Fi. We've got a speaker as well, Jack's Xbox that he never plays. And because in this corner you can't see all of that stuff, you just think that we don't have it, but it is in fact hidden behind the curtain, and it looks like a hot mess behind there, but trust me, it's very neatly organized. All the wires have a place, and you just can't see it. It's hidden. I didn't plan it, it just kind of happened, and the fact that the curtain is there, the windowsill's right there, and the TV's in the corner, it just works. I've also done the same thing with this windowsill here. I wanted to have a lamp over here just to lighten up this area because it can get quite dark, and I love lamps for lighting. It just creates such a gorgeous evening glow. But we didn't have a plug by the window, so I've ran an extension lead over to the window and plugged in the lamp at the bottom, but the extension lead is obviously very bulky, it's very ugly, it's a bit of an eyesore, so I have hidden it behind the curtain. So you can't see that it's there. It's still being really functional, but you just don't know that it's there. I do the exact same thing with the Hoover. I hide the Hoover behind our kitchen door. We never shut that door ever, so it always stays open, and that space behind there is perfect. It's got a plug right there. I can hide the Hoover behind the door. Nobody knows it's there, and it's so easy to access. I also do a similar thing in my office. I have a bit of a dead space behind the door. It's quite an inset into the wall where the cupboards are built in, and I felt like this space really could be utilized, so I bought a very skinny set of drawers from Facebook Marketplace and painted them myself, and they fit perfectly into this gap. So this houses all of my pajamas and all my underwear, and on top lives my perfume, and then towards the edge at the back of the door I've got all of my exercise mats rolled up, my Pilates ring. It's really accessible, it's really easy to grab, but you also can't see it. Again, I never really shut that door, so I don't see it, and if I don't see it, it doesn't annoy me. Okay, so that brings me to the end of today's video. This is gonna be part 1. I am going to be filming a part 2, which is going to be all around my wardrobe, how I store my clothes, my organizing tips when you don't have a lot of space. Let me know down below if you have any other storage or furnishing tips of your own, because I would love to chat with you. And I will see you in the next video. Bye!